Grammy U members to On the Screen, performing on live TV. Our moderator today is an Emmy-nominated talk show producer and currently co-executive producer on SHERRI. She heads up a talent booking department covering all facets of entertainment and has booked hundreds of artists, interviews, and music performances. Please join me in welcoming to the stage, Siobhan Schanda.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for being here. We have a great panel for you today. I'm going to go to the end here. We're kind of winging it. I want to thank the Recording Academy, Grammy U, of course, Jesse Allen, who's done an amazing job setting up this conference, Amazon Music, and now we're going to get into the panel. So I'm going to introduce our panelists, starting with Yeji Cha Beach. Our first panelist is a music associate producer for NBC's Late Night with Seth Meyers and the artistic director of Did You Hear? In her 10-plus years at Late Night, she's worked with an incredible range of artists, including Aretha Franklin, Lorde, James Blake, and Brandi Carlile, and that's just to name a few. Her latest endeavor, Did You Hear?, is a live music series featuring established and emerging artists. Please welcome Yeji Cha Beach. All right, now, this next panelist, she's a New York City-based songwriter and musician and has been releasing original music for over a decade. In 2023, Rolling Stone named her one of the 250 greatest guitarists of all time. That's amazing. From 2014 to 2022, she was a member of the 8G band on NBC's Late Night with Seth Meyers. Please welcome Marnie Stern. All right, and then finally, we have someone who has racked up over 2 billion global streams, had top billing at festivals like Coachella and Lollapalooza, as well as opening slots on Lorde and Paramore's tours.
These look great, too.
She's worked with the likes of Nile Rodgers, Beck, Dominic Fike, and many more. She's kicked off her new album, Big Ideas, with the lead single, Cinderella. You probably heard it. She'll open for Olivia Rodrigo on the European leg of the tour, the Guts World Tour. Please put your hands together for the uber-talented Remi Wolf. So, this is so exciting because each of you have such unique experiences, but yet we all kind of align in terms of live music for television. Why don't each of you just introduce yourself quickly, just a quick little intro.
Should I go?
You go,
Okay,
Yeji.
great. Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here. I'm Yeji Cha Beach. I am the music associate producer at Late Night with Seth Meyers. I've been on the show we've been on air for over 10 years, so it's kind of crazy to think that, just a blink of an eye. I've been a musician my whole life. My background is in violin performance, so it's been really unique as like a performer to also have that like hat of the other side of the stage during my work. And so, yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Marnie.
Hi, I'm Marnie Stern. I'm a musician, a guitar player. I sing, I put records out. I was in the house band at Late Night with Seth Meyers for 8 years. So I'm friends with Yeji, and now I put out a new record. I've been touring it. That's me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Remi Wolf. Hello. I'm a musician, songwriter, artist, fashionista. And I am here today to talk about live TV performances, which I've done 4 of. So hopefully I'll have enough shit to say to you.
Yeah, this is great. So you all have, such different experiences and vast experiences. Can you, so in terms of your general role, Yeji, we'll start with you. So how does the process start in terms of the booking process? Like, there's a give and take in terms of people, you reaching out to people and people reaching out to you. Can you tell us a little bit about the process?
Yeah. So kind of at late night, my role is divided into two sort of pillars. Like one, I work really closely with one of our supervising producers who books the musical acts. And when they're booked, and it's, like I also go see artists and pitch, etc. And once they're booked, it's the whole like advanced work that goes into, like, let's say, for example, if Remi is performing on the show, I would work with Remi's publicist and, tour manager, production manager, lighting designer, creative director, or also maybe Remi herself, and kind of help shape what they want for the performance on our show. And keep in mind, it's like 4 minutes, right? And it's not like your Coachella tour, it's not your MSG show. So kind of like under the realistic realm of like, oh, this is at Late Night with Seth Meyers, like what are we gonna do? So working with guest bands, and then I also work closely with one of our producers managing the house band. And our house band, the HG house band, is unique in that we have a rotating cast of drummers every week. So you guys know Fred Armisen, musician, comedian. He is our band leader and drummer, but he's out of town a lot, busy with other projects. So we have different drummers come on the show to perform for a week at a time. So it's been really fun being part of that creative process of like, and I'm also looking for diverse drummers, not just another white male drummer, but female drummers, LGBTQ, drummers, and it's been really rewarding to be part of that process to highlight different musicians.
And speaking of, the HG band, Marnie, that's such a coveted position to be on a house band on a national late night talk show. How did that come about?
Fred Armisen asked me to sub for him to play guitar a few times, and he had a bunch of different people subbing in for him. And then after about, I don't know, I had done it maybe 5 or 6 times, and he said, hey, do you want to come on full time?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very different than touring and doing music. You go in, it's basically a 9-to-5 job. You go in the morning at 10:30 or 11. When we started, we were so nervous, all of us, including Fred, that we would go into a studio at like 8 in the morning. And
it's very hard for a musician.
Yeah.
8 o'clock call time.
But, we had to write 8 songs a day every day, which is a bunch, and get used to that. And then you go in for a rehearsal, and then you do your hair and makeup, and then you do the show, and it's the same. It's not late at night. It's at 5 o'clock, and then 4 o'clock, and then you go home, and then you come in, you do it the next day, and it's very... becomes very comfortable, and the challenge is to stay comfortable, but also your job is to entertain the audience at home and the audience.
And what about creativity? Do you feel it's an outlet to be creative as well?
Well,
in
sure.
that setting?
Sure, because you're writing songs. I think if we were just doing covers, it might be a little bit different, but because we're writing our own stuff every day, you're bringing your own personality.
Which is unique, too, for night band. So.
Yeah.
And for you, Remi, like, now that you've got this new album coming out, you're going to be doing the shows. Do you, with your team, like, how does that conversation start? Do you guys sit down? Does your team come to you and say, look, we're thinking about certain shows. What do you think?
Yeah. Late night TV is it's something that you expect to do, I guess, during an album release if things are going well. I'm very lucky to be doing all these late night performances, but it's kind of
You could do a daytime show too, SHERRI.
Yeah, sure, daytime, give it to me. Give it to me in the light of day, baby. They're all filmed during the day. Sorry, what was the question?
How do you process, like you deciding what your dream booking would be, and
yeah, they're all. I think they're kind of all dream booking. It's like such a great opportunity, but I do have a publicist, PR lady her name's Dana. She's not here, but she does you know, go out and make her connections, and I'm sure she pitches me for different shows. And they come back with offers at times.
Yeah.
So yeah, this past one, I just did Colbert a couple weeks ago.
How was the
yeah.
process of coming up with the creative? Because you're such a creative person and artist, and your videos are amazing and unique. In terms of translating that to a late night show or a talk show.
Yeah, okay, so this is like a whole thing. Because when you do late night, the stages are really small. They make them look bigger on TV than they actually are, but they're probably from here to the end of that table over there. It's really tiny.
The number of artists who come and they're like, what? This is it? Wow. Like,
Yeah. Whatever magic you guys are doing on that camera is pretty nuts. Because when I first walked into like Fallon per se, I was like, holy shit, this is like puny.
The SNL music stage is even smaller.
Wow, because that one looks big. I've never done SNL. That's a dream one. If you want
You'll
to dream
find
one,
out.
that'd be great.
I
yeah.
have a feeling you're going to find out.
Yeah. But so yeah, you have to keep the stage in mind, how small it is, how many people you can fit on stage, how many props you can fit on stage. When it comes to performing live in general for me, I kind of always like to lead with the sound of the music first. So if any of you have seen my performances, i.e. Fallon, Colbert, Coachella, I don't know what other ones I did. I guess I did Fallon twice because I did one during the pandemic. That one doesn't really count. But I love having a big live band because when you go into these shows, they all go into work every day, and they're kind of it's clockwork, and you're the new element that's added in. So anything that I can have under my control going into a show like that, so like my band, as many live players as I can get is what I want to lead with, because I know exactly how it's going to sound, rather than bringing in like a computer that has tracks or something. Also, I just think that live music carries better on TV and just carries better in general to our ears and our spirits. So
in working with the producer and the director of these shows, the concept comes to like your team working with the talk show, like with Yeji. You know, they're helping you achieve your vision.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I've been lucky that like I'll go into the, like with Colbert, for example, it's top of mind because I just did it, but they were all so stoked that it was like a live band. Because also, they have a house band, y'all have a house band. I was able to hire some of Colbert's house band to play with me, which was like an amazing honor because they're all fantastic musicians. And they were all super stoked on that, and it felt very communal in that way. And I kind of I just like leading with musicianship in these situations because I know you're talking about like my visuals and everything.
But that makes so much sense because you feel that through the screen when you're coming from there.
Yeah, I want it to feel fun, and I have the most fun when I'm playing with my friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's so many musicians on stage that kind of becomes the visual.
Yeah.
So like with Colbert, we really wanted to lean into kind of like this vintage 70s vibe. Like if you go back on YouTube and watch like Sly and the Family Stone, their creative is a bunch of vintage lights and just beautiful vintage gear.
Yeah.
And like styling, like looking fly as fuck. So that's kind of what I wanted to execute on Colbert, just because we had 10 musicians on stage. There wasn't room for like a big swing hanging from the ceiling or something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
amazing. And Marnie, like being in the house band at the HG band, in terms of playing, like because you guys have had everybody on the show, big artists. So in terms of people utilizing you guys, did that happen a lot? Or
A couple big ones come to mind. Brad Paisley got up with us a bunch of times and played, and he's such a great guitar player that he just had no idea what we were playing. He just got on, had it, started playing.
That's amazing.
We did something with Miley Cyrus, what was planned, and we came on, I think we played one of her songs, and she came out. It was some promo. She was doing Fallon right after. And then I remember
Dolly.
Dolly.
And that was all impromptu, I think.
In the last 10 minutes before the show. 10 minutes before the show, the producer came back and said, could you just play Jolene? And she could just sing a little bit of it. And we did. And now those types of things are your holy shit moments where...
Definitely.
I'm not supposed to be doing this, but here I am. And
that's amazing. Yeah. So, and how often would it happen that the house band?
Well, first of all, for us, so because we had that rotating drummer, the beginning of the show, the first couple years, were insane because we had. I mean, for me, I'm a rock musician, and we had a lot of rock drummers on that were, Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers and Matt Cameron from Soundgarden. I mean, hundreds of them. The Pixies drummer, the Jane's Addiction drummer, Guns N' Roses drummer, and we'd play a song of theirs on the show every night and sing. Like we had the B-52s come on, Kate Pearson came on, I sang with her song, which I also should not have been singing, but I got to do it, so I was having fun. Abe Laboriel Jr., who is Paul McCartney's band, we sang Jet with him singing and playing, like pretty crazy. Dreamy stuff, and we'd have one day to learn it, and which kind of made it easier in a weird way because you can't get all worked up about it. You just come in, learn it, play it. Oh shit, I did that, and then the next week we're on to the next drummer. So for us, every week we had to learn all these people's music, so it kind of kept your mind occupied. I would walk to work every day for my exercise and listen to the song that we had to do, and then we'd get in and do it.
That's the uniqueness of live television or live to tape and late night. Like, you don't have a lot of time to figure it out and the arrangements and,
In a way, that's good, because if you're too precious with stuff, you could overthink it, and I think you could also get into lots of arguments with arrangement and, with band stuff, when it's quick, it's easier. Or else you start saying, well, what if we put this here? Well, maybe we could arrange it here. Maybe I could sing this part and you could sing this part. And then you kind of get into the shit where this way it's just, all right, great. You got that? Oh, good. That sounds good. Okay, good.
And then a little bit of magic happens. That's so cool.
I feel like Remi made a really good point too. It's like she comes in, everything's set up, but also it's like you have your 4 minutes on camera, but it's within this 60-minute block of like the rest of the show, right? It's not like Late Night with Remi Wolf, right? And so as an artist too, it's like, and being part of the music team, it's like, right, like it's not just a music show, which I wish it were, but we've got the political segment, we've got the guests, and then we fit in the music.
The biggest thing I learned from the show versus your own personal career is that you're selling a commercial product, and your job is to entertain. And with your own work, your job is to present your feelings, your music, your emotions, your heart. It's a different ball game than coming out and my job was to make Seth Meyers look the best that he possibly could. It was not about me at all. And that I think everyone is there working to further not just the artists, but the network. And
absolutely. Yeji, in terms of booking bands and artists, how far out do you guys book? And and I know because I book TV, like it can take years to book somebody. It can take a year. It might happen overnight. But for you guys, like, tell us a little bit about your process.
Well, I know that sometimes our supervising producer, he'll work for literally years. Like, this will be like a seed that keeps growing and growing. And a lot of times it's not just about like, oh, who's in town and like what's this project, what's this tour, but also just like the timing of it, right? And so sometimes there's a conversation that happens for years and then it finally works and it's beautiful. Sometimes it can be just like a quick within a month or 2 months. You know, we get pitched artists all the time. Our inboxes are flooded with pitches. And, you know, part of what I love doing is like kind of combing through that. And I love also like looking for like emerging, you know, new artists.
Not everybody's ready right away.
Well, that's the thing. And like an aspect of my job that I love is I love if there's somebody that seems interesting, but they're kind of under the radar, I want to go see them live. Because like seeing them live will kind of help me to kind of get like the vibe of, oh, will this translate over camera? Because like somebody might perform so well and like you watch their video or hear the music and you're like, this is such a vibe and it's great. But then you see them in person, you're like, oh, I don't know if this will translate on screen. And we are a TV show, you know, so like that's something to keep in mind too. And sometimes there's artists that I love and I'm like, oh, it's not gonna translate well.
Well, that's what's so great about Remi, because it does, you have that. Like it's so special to you know, to tour and play live and then to have it translate to television and broadcast and streaming and everything. So, you know, this is what, again, is what we kind of strive for and what we do in terms of booking music, like, you know, the real artistry of it. In terms of people, like, you know how there's sometimes, like, you start hearing the buzz about somebody, like whether it was Justin Bieber or, you know, like even like with Beyonce on Beyonce's album, you know, the Country Carter and the girls that sang on Blackbird, like Tyler, Adele, and Brittany Spencer. Do you guys kind of is there ever like a timeliness where you're like, I got to get that person, like I have to, you know, I'd love, you know, Seth would love to have that person perform?
That's a great question. You know, speaking of Seth, like he kind of gives like the team our liberty to like do what we want to do with music on the show. But there are times when he will kind of ping our producer and be like, hey, can we get this band? Can we get that band? And sometimes like we'll never have heard of them. And we're just like, yep, whatever boss wants, you know?
And it's Taylor Adele, I can't pronounce her name. But no, it's just fun too when there's like buzz about, like, and Remi, you can speak to this because you're one of these artists, that it's like, you know, there's something that happens in the booking world. Everybody's then vying to, you know, want to work with you. So
yeah, I mean, I guess I think what helps is having done other late night shows, I think helps me book more late night shows. Absolutely. And especially if I do a good job, then people see it and like it and hopefully want me for their show. But yeah, I have no control of it. I just try to show up and do my thing.
You just do the creative.
Yeah.
And be yourself. Marnie, what advice do you have, you know, for somebody who wants to work in live music, whether they're performing or they want to be in a house band or they,
Well,
you know?
First of all, you have to get out there and play live on your own a lot to get comfortable. There is no way, I mean, it took me years to assimilate to a camera in my face every night and knowing that there were a million people watching.
It's very different.
It's very different and very difficult, and you're kind of posed, standing and playing, and the camera is up in your face, and I had to have, you know, a decade of experience of playing 500 shows on tour to be able to do it, I think. I mean, I think I would say the guys in the band would say the same thing because they had all played a lot of shows. But a piece of advice I would give that is the opposite of who I am, I was very lucky. I mean, on one hand, you could say, well, I worked very hard, and so I developed a unique style, and then Fred Armisen knew of my music, and then, so there I was on the show that way. On the other hand, I am not a social person at all, and that's very bad. You really, really, this whole thing is based on, you don't have to be fake, But this whole thing is based on talking to people, relationships.
Yeah.
And I hide in my house and always have and always will, and it's a real deterrent. So my advice would be to just get comfortable being social, going out places, not staying at home. Be a doer. I am not a doer. Be a doer.
But you did the work too. And
Yes.
that's what led you to, even though you're introverted in that way.
Yes.
And that spoke for itself,
Yes.
which is amazing.
Yeah, so it can happen, but would you rather put in 8 hours a day of playing an instrument at home for a decade, or just talk to people and play with them?
True. Yeji, for you, like, what would you say in terms of everybody out there watching now and in the audience, in terms of getting into the business, and a little bit about your path again, but what would you advise in terms of making that first step?
I feel like really like trust your gut and try as many things as you possibly can. And one thing I really learned is like knowing when to say yes, but also knowing when to say no. Like you understand the situation, you can read the room, and you get the vibe of like, oh, this is not a right fit for me. But being curious and asking lots of questions. There are no stupid questions. Like that's one thing.
I think that's true, and I always tell people, it's important to try a lot of things, but also you do have to decide what lane you want to be into in our business, because it goes so fast and you have to be learning. So you really have to be passionate about, what it is, whether you want to be a producer or you want to, be a director or, music, or a player. Are you, a performer? I mean, Remi, what would you say as an artist to those, aspiring artists out there who want to give it a go?
Yeah. With music specifically, I would say I always put the music first, and that never changes. I think you can get far with okay music, but you can get much farther with incredible music, and that's kind of what I try to do. And I love music so much, and I love making songs, and I love writing songs, I love production, so I kind of always lead with that first. So if you're writing music right now, just really focus on it and try to develop your own style. And I like that you said always trust your gut, because I think for me, the most I've ever felt proud of my own work is when I followed my gut, and the most I've ever felt disappointed and just like insane in my life is when I've ignored my gut. And that's something that I've really been tuned into recently. So there's like no point in doing it, guys. Like you're right. Everything that you want to do or feel in your body, like that is correct. And doubting it is really easy, but following it will lead you down the right path, I think, always. So yeah, that's some advice,
Cool.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeji, is there an experience where something maybe, didn't go the way you thought it was going to go, that you thought maybe that was a blessing? Or, sometimes I say, like, when something doesn't happen, like that job you're aspiring to, whatever, it doesn't happen, it's leaving the door open for another situation. But what would you say to everybody watching in terms of taking that first step? Like, not every job is going to happen, like that you're aspiring to, and you're going to be and you're going to want it so badly. But if it doesn't happen, what do you say to?
I mean, that happens all the time in life, right?
Yeah.
You anticipate something, you want something so badly, and it doesn't, and that's life. But kind of like, for me, my personal, like, I kind of repeat this almost all the time, which is everything happens for a reason. And like, you put in the work, you trust your gut, you trust your instincts. And as long as you show up and stay present and believe in yourself, like, things will happen, and everything happens for a reason, whether good or unfortunately bad. And when things happen, and then just recognizing that this is a really unique opportunity and like grabbing it and just going really hard with it, I think is invaluable. Yeah.
Yeah. And Marnie, now, like for you, you know, for your next, you know, chapter, like, you know, how do you approach, you know, because you're established and you know, you have so many fans and.
Well, there's yin and yang, you know, the show. So I just finished a tour, and it was very satisfying. It was very satisfying because you appreciate it when when you haven't done something, you appreciate it. But I would say to try. Of course, all of this is correct, but I would try in your own work to put some vulnerability into it for you artists out there who are songwriters, because for me, I'm not interested in listening to anything that, I like to see the person in the work, and I feel like that's getting lost a lot. The whole idea of writing something is to capture something unique. So I would say concentrate on that as much as possible in a deteriorating world of homogeneity.
Yeah, and I think that also plays into what we do in terms of doing music on live television. We're looking for something different. We don't want to have the same type of artist over and over. We want to, you know, we want to break artists. We want unique voices, special, like Remi, who's so special. Like, but it's hard to do that you really do have to listen to your gut and your, you know, that inner voice that's telling you, you know, and keep, you know, the noise out. Yeah. So, you know.
Well, it brings you back to childhood, you know, that feeling, an embarrassing feeling. If you feel that, that's good. Keep going with it.
I think feeling scared is not a bad thing.
Right.
And even 10 plus years into doing this, I'm like today, I feel scared. I feel a little nervous, but like this is all good. It's growing.
We do this every day. Like we work in television, we, you know, performing all of this. Is there anything about in terms of the media landscape changing and broadcast, how do you think live performance, in terms of booking, I mean, there's so many avenues now to do it, and you have, you know, your show that you do, and it's called?
It's called Did You Hear? So I started this live music series in my town, and they're house concerts. And I wanted to start it because I missed going to like a really intimate live concert with like 60 to 70 other people, and the artist is just like right there. And you can I call it like a concert that's so intimate that the artist can hear the audience listening. And I miss that, right? And like, yes, shows are amazing when it's like for thousands of people, but like that intimate, especially in this day and age when everything is so like fast and on screen and, you know, accessible, just to like be in a room with 70 other people and like you can hear everyone breathing, and like that connection is so special. Yeah.
Remi, for you, like you're going to be in a big stadium tour over the summer. Like for you, what's that your favorite place to play or venue or?
Yeah. I think that still my favorite type of venue to play is like a 350 cap, like little bar club. Because of those reasons, like there's so much more intimacy, and it's way more of a party for me, and you can just like you are literally looking people in the eyes and are touching their hands, and I love that. I mean, when I was in high school and in college, my main method of performing was at house parties in like the back barn or whatever the fuck the house had. The backyard, the barn, the living room. I lived in this house with 10 kids, and we threw parties every single week. We threw shows like twice a month, probably actually more than that, probably 3 or 4 times a month. And that was incredible. It's an incredible time. Like everybody's just wild and crazy and really, really learning so much from the music. And I think that's where I learned how to connect with people performing, which I think helps me now when I am doing bigger rooms.
Or television even.
Or television, like, I know how to make that connection because I played so many times actually making that connection. And not that I'm simulating the connection now, but it's much harder when you're in a room of 30,000 people. Like, you can't really do the thing, but I can work the energy in my own way because I've learned how to over the past 10 years of my life. So, but yeah, 350 cap, that's the shit.
Yeah.
That's the sweet spot for me, yeah.
So we have a couple of questions on live stream. The first one is from Alexandra C. For Remi, what are the differences between performing at your own live shows versus performing on live television, and how does each environment impact your performance?
Yeah, they're incredibly different. The first thing is that on live TV, you have a camera in your face, and you were just talking about how it took you years to get used to that camera being there. I mean, I've done TV 4 times. I am deeply terrified of the camera every time. I'm like, please don't look at me.
Well, it's unnatural.
It's so unnatural, and like, you have no idea what the lighting is. There's just, and then it's, and then it's being posted online for like the entire internet to consume. So that is always a big scary difference.
Do you read your comments?
Do I read my comments? Like the first day that something comes out, yes, and then I kind of leave it in the dust. People are nice to me online, thank God. I'm gonna say this, and then the internet's gonna take a turn, but sometimes, yeah.
Well, okay, so we have another question. Kayla E., thank you for your question. What is the biggest mistake you see people make when transitioning a live performance from stage to TV? What advice would you offer someone, Yeji?
That's a really good question.
It's a good question.
So when you're transferring like something live to then TV.
Yes, like.
Oh man. Well, so I have one example. Back in 2014 when we started the show, we had the amazing MIA on the show. And like day of, like this was not part of the advance, there was no production meeting over this, but day of, like on site, during sound check, she was like, I want to have drones. I want to have this. I want to have, and we wanted to make this production happen. But like operating drones inside our studio, it's first of all this big, and the signals.
You want to make the artist happy, but there's only so much.
Yeah, but so like I imagine at Coachella, I'm sure that is amazing to like make it happen for that space. But in our studio, it's a little difficult, So I'll never forget that. It's like, I love the vision, and we want to respect that vision as much as we can. But then
Did you make it happen?
So during camera block, it worked. There were 2 drones. I think there were 2, yeah. Gosh, 10 years ago. But then during the show, it didn't work.
Like helicopter drones? Like little tiny... Bzz, bzz.
During the actual taping, because we tape as if, we're live. We don't stop and just
live to tape.
It's live to tape. So, but during taping, I think only one went up and the other.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it
Let
goes,
me ask you
though.
this: so you're going to book an artist, let's say. Who do you talk to on your team? Do you work with your executive producer, the producers in general? What is the process once it's booked? And then when do you is your director intimately involved, and your lighting person?
I'm sure it's case by case with each show, but at least at our show, our supervising producer books the band, and then if they want to do something creative, we have initial creative meeting with, let's say, Remi's team. And so Remi's publicist or creative director or lighting designer might be involved, and they have a deck of this is our vision for our performance on late night. And then we absorb that deck and kind of right off the bat say this is just not possible given the size, given the space. We don't have a screen, whatever. But then we take what we could do, and then we have a separate meeting with our internal, producers, our director, our LD, our props team, etc. So there's this whole, it's a whole thing. Yeah.
I can tell you a couple of examples. I think from novice to experienced, a lot of times your in-ears will just go out in the middle of the show, or say your guitar will stop working or your microphone will not be working. And your inclination is to stop. Or when you're nervous, I've seen people throw fits, like kind of become a diva out of nerves and embarrassment and an uncomfortable thing. I think the key to that is you just keep on going as if everything's fine, and then you have the choice later if you want to go back and redo it. But that happened constantly happen, where you're playing, nothing's coming out, but you're just smiling. It's cool. So that's like a good example, I think, from live in your own world to television, where you got to roll with it. And,
Absolutely.
And a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. And
It's a lot of pressure.
It's pressure,
You
right.
you do feel that. And talking about the team and the director and all these people, there are so many jobs in terms of pulling off live performance for television, whether it's an award show or a late night show or daytime show. There's so, that's why it is important to talk to people. If you have, if you're visually inclined, maybe you do want to, reach out to directors, or get in producers who can kind of maybe help you network to some of the people you might have an interest in that particular lane. Again, it's not just one person. It starts with Yeji or me, booking, but then there's a whole team of people that pull off the performance. So it's important to kind of see where you might be most passionate about, your role, because there's so many, every role is so integral in terms of pulling it off, especially in live television. Every single person is being counted on, and that's what's exciting about it and kind of dangerous. But anyway, are there any questions from the audience?
Hi, my name is Riley. My question is, what's your favorite creative live late night television set that you had, that you got to work on?
That's a great question. I would say overall for Seth Meyers, our show, we do like to keep our show present. For example, we have our set, we have the brick walls. Oh gosh, there was one time we had an artist, and of course I'm blanking on their name, but they had this glass, spherical stage that they stood on top of, and I'm kicking myself for not remembering this name.
You'll remember afterwards.
I know.
We'll talk about it.
And it was just visually so cool, to see the artist on top of the stage and kind of have that 360 vibe and the reflections on it. And you can imagine, because the cameras are involved, during camera blocking, you have to be super conscious of oh, what is being seen, because this is a glass, structure. We don't want things that we don't want to be seen on camera captured. But so it was I imagine for our crew, it was difficult to work on those things, but they're also experts at knowing how to do this. So.
And also, you're always you're not reinventing the wheel necessarily, but you do want to try to do different things. And that's why, even for Remi, when you're doing performances, it's what's your next performance going to be on live television? It's kind of and sometimes maybe that's as simple as paring it down. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing ever,
Yeah, definitely. For the one that I just did, we used all the lights that we had. It was very colorful, vintage lights, but those were all lights that the studio already had. And when you do this stuff, I don't have the biggest budget in the world, so I kind of have to make it work, and that's where it can become really collaborative with the show and with the studio. We were sending them decks of this vision that we had of this kind of vintage shit, and they're all right, well, we have this, 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 and this. We're gonna have to rent this, 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 and this, and it all kind of got worked out through the collaboration. And I know that
Because budgets are tight across the board now. So.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh my God.
that's where the creativity really comes in.
Yeah, and knowing and like leaning into that, like I knew I didn't have that much money. I was like, I'm not gonna create some big sculpture of a caterpillar or some shit in the back. Like, what do I have? What do I know works? And in my mind, I'm like, lights. Lights work and instruments work. And because I knew that they had that at the studio, I was like, I'm just going to lean into this. And we created a whole creative concept from that. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that there's a lot of twists and turns, and and rolling with the punches is kind of always the best vibe.
At Seth Meyers, they'd have Broadway performances sometimes, and those really took you out of your element because the people at our show would do the sets for them, and then they would come out and perform, and you really felt like you were.
Absolutely. And the thing about, artistry, at the end of the day, like, it comes down to that. Like, you can have a bunch of smoke and mirrors, but truly, and that should only enhance the talent that is there. And I would think, there's a comfort level. It's all about the music at the end of the day. So whether you're doing an acoustic set or like the full band, which is incredible. I mean, everybody loves performance on late night and on any talk show, really, even though, it's gotten harder to do. It's gotten harder to do. I mean, and during the pandemic, you saw the tape performances, which were very cool, but, there's nothing like that interaction with the artist and the audience and the host. And
I will say, speaking of the pandemic, and all the late night shows pivoted, and basically artists were sending us their like highly polished like music videos to then for us to air. And initially it was like, this is really cool. And we were proud that we were able to pivot and do that. Yeah. But then we've so missed having the artist in the studio. And I'll never forget when Florence and the Machine was performing Hunger, and I love Florence. Yeah. And usually I sit like in the audience when I watch soundcheck in camera, but I was like right next to like side stage where the HU band setup is, and I just started crying, and I was like, I miss this so much, just like being in that room with the artist. And
there's nothing like that energy, like having it live.
Yeah. And as a person who did one of those like very music video things during the pandemic, and that was my first time ever on live TV. That shit, well, first of all, it costed so much money because it was during the pandemic, everybody was masked
It's
up.
like making a music video.
I had to make a music video for something that's supposed to be like a live performance. I had dancers. It was so psychotic. I mean, it was cool to see on TV, but personally, performing live, even though it's way more terrifying, is so much more rewarding, I think, for everybody involved, because it's like, oh, we really like made that happen, and there's so much work that goes into it, and it's so exciting at the end of the day.
Are there any other questions? Okay, we got a lot. Why don't we start with you?
Hi. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Oh yeah.
I was wondering about your instrumental songwriting process. I love that you work with a live band. Do you keep that live band in mind while you're songwriting, or do you do your instrumental songwriting and production and then work it out with the band after the fact?
Great question. Did you guys hear the question? Yes? Okay. I work it out after the fact, essentially. I don't really like giving myself any restraints when I'm in the studio. And so, yeah, we go crazy in the studio. I mean, there's sounds that, if anybody's seen my live show here, there's sounds that definitely are not being replicated live. Like, it sounds different. And that's because, you're in it's a very different process. But I try to get everything as close as possible, and if there's like no way to do it, I like to be creative with it. And like, I don't know if any of you guys have heard my Electric Lady like live lounge thing, but but so it wasn't TV, but it was live. and it was a 4-piece band and me. And in order to execute that, we completely changed every single arrangement, which made it really fun and unique, but totally different sounds, you know. And we kind of have to do that for the we have to do that for live TV too. Like Cinderella, which I just performed, it's a stripped back version of the song. Still 9 people, but you can't do every sound live.
How much rehearsal would you put into
Into
that for
Cinderella?
television?
We did 1 day of rehearsal. It was like a 7-hour rehearsal or something for one song.
Wow.
The day before we left. So
That's cool.
it's speedy.
Yes.
I'm a busy girl.
Yes.
There's a lot,
Wait, and you had
there's
a
a lot to
question.
do.
My name's Vilma. I just want to say I have Cinderella on repeat. Me and my girlfriend love you.
Oh, thank you.
So much joy. But this question is for all 3 of the panelists. What is the kind of mental preparation for doing a live performance or producing a live performance?
I would say organization is key. But Yeji, I'll let you,
I would say also because you have a limited amount of time when you're in our studio and for the performance, come in with, obviously communicate with the team in advance with everything you want, like the deck and everything. But when you're on site, you have 30 minutes for camera, you have 30 minutes for sound check or whatever. So just having everything organized and being able to kind of go with the flow. Yeah.
also too, there's so much of it that you're paying SAG-AFTRA because it's a television show. So, there's a person on the team that handles all of that. And then there's, the glam people. And of course, there's everybody on the crew that's working to order the back line and, getting, so.
I would say for yourself, as the performer, to block everything else out and to just focus on exactly what you're doing. Because with anything, you're going to start getting distracted by everything else that's going on and start thinking about a lot of different things. Just focus on what you're doing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Deep focus.
And we as the producers are the ones that keep everything kind of in check. So we're taking care of the artists and, making sure that everything, any issues that come up, that's what we do.
At the end of the day, we want the artists to be comfortable and happy and,
Yes.
Creating that comfort zone for you guys to do the best version of what you're there to do is our goal.
Yes.
Within our
absolutely.
show.
Absolutely.
I will say, watching Yeji for 8 years, you are very good at making people feel comfortable and good on that show.
I think on the flip side of that too, for me, of course, there's you guys trying to make us feel comfortable and me knowing that it is not my space. And having that in mind, because I need to be as focused and as flexible as possible, because I don't have control of the timing, I have no control of the schedule, and you have to be prepared to, be on someone else's time.
Is it ever when you're cutting the track for television, because it's usually 3:30 or less, maybe it's a little bit longer, but is that challenging at all?
Yeah, depending on the song. For Cinderella, keep talking about it, but that song is 4 minutes and 20 seconds. I think and it has a long fade out, so with that it was pretty easy because I just chopped off the fade out and gave it a quick double hit at the end and called it a day. But yeah, I know people who have had to cut 2 minutes out of their song, and I've thankfully have never had to do that, but it's definitely a thing to keep in mind. Yeah.
I wish it were longer.
I know, me too. I always wish it's longer.
It's also unique. Oh,
No, you go ahead.
because you spend all day going through sound check and camera, and then there's a break, and then you get ready, and you're nervous, and then it's 3 minutes 30 seconds done. And
It's
I'm thinking
over.
backstage,
Yeah.
can we just have a full
It's
show
so psychotic.
of your music?
Yeah.
It's psychotic.
I know, and it's it's always a treat if you get a second, if you finish and then the band plays
And also,
Always ask for the second one. Always.
as a band
Absolutely.
member, that's a huge difference doing live TV versus your own thing. Your own thing, you're up there to perform. You do one song, and that's your beginning. Then you go for an hour. When you are on TV, you come in, you play the intro song, you're all hyped up, and then that's it.
There's no warm
Camera pans over to the host, and it's a very bizarre feeling to just then
Talk about being vulnerable. You're like,
stand for
just gave everything.
right, and then you wait for 15 minutes, and then it
And
comes
then it's
back.
over. But it lives on YouTube. So,
Yeah.
any other questions?
Good. Thank you. For me personally, I'm doing whatever I want.
There are production
There's
managers and
certain-
people like like
Yeah.
choreographers for
There's
some
certain,
artists.
yeah, I don't have a choreographer or anything like that. For live TV specifically, I mean, there's certain blocking things that they'll want you to hit. Like they'll have a vision for how the first 10 seconds of the shot are gonna go. And me knowing that, it's like, okay, I gotta hit my mark. And then besides that, I'm just doing whatever the fuck. I don't know. I don't plan anything in that way. Some artists definitely do, for sure. I actually did have my bass player and my guitar player.
You have some great moves.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yes.
thanks. Just the wild goddess within is twirling around. Yeah, like I will give my band members some direction at times. Like I had my guitar player and my bass player like move their hips from left to right. And I think at one point we might have locked in on that. But yeah, essentially I'm doing whatever I want. And then with the TV, it's like hitting the marks that they kind of direct me to have, which is very few. But
Yeah. Again, wanting the artist to achieve your vision of what it is. And sometimes that's even like with the backline stuff, like getting that like exact, the in-ears or whatever it is, very simple things, but to make you the most comfortable.
totally.
And that's what everybody on the production team strives to do, I think, and especially on your show and many shows, because it's such a unique, special job to do. So you really want everybody to leave feeling so good about it. The artists, the teams, the staff, the crew. It's really special.
So in relation to like the in-ears, like I guess my question for everyone is kind of like on like the show's side of things and also on the art side of things, do you find it kind of like varies in the artist, like how much direction or like click track, that kind of thing, like the artist gets, or like do you find like maybe sometimes like more is necessary or like depends on the show?
Yeah.
Rehearsal
Did I take
and
this one?
blocking.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, it's so artist dependent. Some people don't want click at all. We were playing, we played to click. I think I like to have like a little bit of click in my ears, but everybody is so different. Everybody has a different in-ear. Everybody has a different in-ear mix. Sometimes you can bring your own guys. Sometimes they have a guy that does it for you, and there's not a lot of flexibility on that. It kind of depends on the show and the artist. I would say in-ears are it's one of the most difficult factors in live music performance in general.
Really good question, by the way.
Something that you also do or don't realize is that when you're doing a live show, there are people talking, other people while the show is happening that are talking in your ear for the entire show. Someone's saying, a producer's saying something, someone's saying something
As
to
a house
someone.
band member.
As a house band member, someone's saying something
Not
to
for me.
someone else for the whole thing, and you're, it's happening while you're the camera and you're smiling and you're going out to commercial, and they're like, no, I don't think this should happen, and blah, 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 and you just can't.
Marnie's
can't
smiling.
And I'm smiling, you just don't acknowledge it, but you get used to that. But in your mind, you're thinking, this is kind of cuckoo that.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
nobody
also the
knows
in-ear
what's
is so deep in your ear canal that it's like, oh my God, like my brain is like talking.
But like sometimes you're hit, you know, like if you're moving your back, like mine would be on my jean or my pant, and my back would move, and the volume would turn totally totally loud or totally off, and you're like, you know, there's all little things like that happen.
And that's
but
live television, so you just roll with it.
Yeah.
And you got to figure it out. You know, there's so much more we could talk about, but we have to wrap it up. So I just want to say thank you guys for your questions, and everybody out there live watching the stream. Yeji, Marnie, Remi, just amazing. It's so cool to be able to sit here and talk with you. You know, to the crowd, what'd you guys think? I think we all hope you go home with a better understanding of how this side of the business works. And there's so many more things that we can talk about. And, you know, hopefully we'll get another opportunity to do that another time. And thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you for attending the 2024 Grammy U Conference presented by Amazon Music. And have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you next year.